You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Pro Wrestling Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Got a very special guest in this week's episode. I'm joined by one of the brightest talents in Scottish wrestling, Ashley Vega. Ashley, it's a pleasure to welcome you onto the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
I'm doing well, What's it been like? Obviously the past year's been a bit of a write-off when it comes to wrestling. What's it been like trying to keep busy?
Yeah, I think the first while it was a lot easier because there was loads of things to do, but now that we're like over a year into it, there's nothing else.
Yeah. When was the last time you had a match?
The last time that I wrestled was November of 2019, which was quite a while ago now, over a year. So yeah.
Has it been like not been able to get booked and things like that? Like has it just been because there's no events on?
Yeah, so when the start of 2020 came, I didn't really have anything planned, so I was just focusing on training because I started a new training school and things like that. So then the pandemic obviously started in March, and then so I had nothing since November of the year prior. So it's just been a long time, but I wish that I did do things in December, etc. But I just wasn't. I didn't know any of this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So like obviously going forward, there's plans and now we're kind of slowly getting back to normality and kind of shows are starting up again. Is there much planned?
Yeah. So I know that there's a few shows that I've got coming up at the end of this year. For I want to say November, and hopefully there'll be some more coming up. But I guess we never know because I feel like things keep getting pushed back and delayed. Yeah. So it's just kind of hoping that things will come back soon enough. I do have some things planned for like England and things later on in the year, so hopefully they do go ahead.
Brilliant. Well, Mickie, we start in your early years. What was it like growing up? Was it always a plan to become a wrestler?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I have an older brother who was a massive wrestling fan, and one day I just like sat down and watched it with him, and I was like, this is so cool. And one of the first like matches I saw was, I think it was Mickie James and Trish, and I was really young at the time, but I'd never saw a woman do it, and I watched it and I was like, that's so cool, like I want to do that. So ever since then I was hooked on it, just like my brother was. So he's kind of the reason for it. And then like I just never grew out of it. Like I think everyone thought it would be something that I would grow out of, but it never ever was something I did.
Who were some of your favourite kind of wrestlers growing up?
So when I was really young, the people that I remember watching the most was people like Trish and Mickie, because they were the first people I started watching. People like Candice Michelle, like these people that you wouldn't think, when everyone thinks about their favourite wrestlers, nobody ever says people like that. And I think that people think it's, when I say it's like a joke, but it's not, because to me, genuinely, they were so entertaining.
Yeah.
And that's what I grew up watching, and that's what I loved watching. People like Gail Kim, Victoria, all those kind of era women were the kind of people that I was hooked onto at the start, and was obsessed, and still am obsessed with.
Do you still obviously watch it as much as you're involved in it now? Do you still watch it as much as you used to back then?
I think when I started, I was still very much into it, but ever since the pandemic, I've slowly started to get into wrestling a lot more and watching it a lot more, because there's so much more time on my hands now. Especially like I love old pay-per-views and old wrestling, and that's more what I would say I watch than the newer stuff. I'm always watching like old pay-per-views from WWE, or I'm watching really old TNA things because I used to love TNA as well growing up. So I do now watching it a lot more than what I did when I started wrestling, just because I've got so much more time now.
Brilliant. See, when it comes to obviously a kind of Scottish perspective, who's some of the kind of inspirations and mentors for this side?
Well, when I started, the training school that I went to was also the training school that Noam Dar and Kaylee Ray
Right,
attended.
okay.
So I always thought when I first started they were doing so well, and then obviously Kaylee went on to WWE and both of them did. So they two, especially just because they started off where I did, they were always the two that I kind of looked up to mainly. But there's so many other women that I've always looked up to. For example, Session Moth Martina, I just adore her. I think she's so funny and she's so different. So when I first started, she was always one that I looked up to because she was so different and so entertaining as well. So off the top of my head, those are probably the three, even though she's not Scottish, but those are the three kind of independent that I've always kind of looked up to in that sense.
Brilliant. What was the kind of inspiration to start? Like, when did it become a thing that you could do this full time?
Yeah, well, when I started doing shows when I was 16, so I was quite young, but the thing, I never really thought it was something I could do full time. And I'm still working towards that as my main goal just now. It's still something that I'm trying to do, but I think ever since I was wee that it was always something I wanted to do full time. Like, it was never just a hobby for me. Like, it's always been, this is what I want to do, and that's been the goal ever since, and it's not changed since then. So yeah, ever since I was wee, it's always been something that like your dream job, as you'd say, that's always been the goal.
What's kind of training school been like over the past couple of years?
Yeah, so I went to a few different ones. Right now, I'm currently training with Joe Hendry at his school.
Okay.
So I've been there for a wee while now, but it's definitely, like, I think when you start, you kind of you just go to whatever school you think's best. But when you start learning more about the business and things, you kind of have to start branching out to other places and other coaches. And I think with Joe, it's like I'm so much happy there. I just love his school, and he's such a great coach, and obviously all the things he's achieved is something that it's what I look up to. So I think training with Joe has like been the best thing that's happened.
Brilliant. Do you remember your first match?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was so, yeah, like I said, I think I just turned 16. I was really young, and I'd only been training a year before getting that match, and I don't know if I remember going to the venue. It was a very small venue, and it was all just kind of family and friends, but it was so like nerve-wracking because I, d- I don't think I was ready for how like soon it was and how young I was. I had like 10 panic attacks before anything, and there wasn't even a lot of people there, but it was just so nerve-wracking. But I think after it was one of those like experiences that you don't ever forget, because it's one of the first times you've ever wrestled in front of people. So it's one of those ones. So it's always something I won't forget, sadly. It was, to see how far I've went since then, though, it's like a different person.
And see, like when you're wrestling in front of like small crowds, do you feel as if you've got a connection with the fans straight away?
Sometimes, yeah. I think I don't have a preference to like bigger or smaller crowds, but for like example, I just love wrestling in any front of crowds. So like I've done like over 18 shows, I've done family shows, and the kind of smaller shows I still love just as much as the bigger shows. And I think the smaller shows are more nerve-wracking than the bigger ones, just because there's so little people and they're so close. It's more nerve-wracking than having lots of people there, strangely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, early work with kind of like say SWA and PBW, were they good memories you've got there?
Yeah, definitely, especially with SWAs like and things like that, SSW, and there I think because I was so young and just learning, and it was just all with my friends. It was just such a fun thing. Like it wasn't, no one really cared about, making this like, oh, this is so serious and this is our job. It was because we were all friends and we got on with each other so well. It was just fun, and I love looking back on those times because we were so clueless, and but it was so much fun. Like those early matches with like Angel Hayes and things are like one of like some of my best memories in wrestling.
See, when you mention Angel Hayes, just how good an opponent she been? Like you've obviously spent a lot of time with her. Like doing, are you kind of friends off out the ring as well?
Yeah, definitely. But I think since the pandemic, we've not wrestled in such a long time, like over a year, and we've not seen each other in a long time as well. But she's doing really well for herself in like ICW and things, which is great. I'd love the opportunity to obviously wrestle her again because it's been so long. But when we wrestled each other, we knew each other so well, and
Yeah.
we did it so much because we were both the same age and coming up at the exact same time, so we were always put on shows together. So yeah, I think it would be good to do it again.
Who else have been some of your kind of favourite opponents?
I've loved wrestling. I've wrestled Jokey a few times. Loved wrestling Jokey. Lana Austin. I've only wrestled her once or twice actually, and she's just so fun as well to be in the ring with. Yeah, I think those are some of my favourites. Emily Hayden, she's fun as well, and Martina, I've wrestled her once, and that was so much fun as well. So
Brilliant. How much do you enjoy tag team?
yeah, a lot. I think I can't remember the last tag team match I actually had, but it's been like so long. But I love like mixed tag teams wrestling. Like I miss all wrestling in general, but I've not been able to like tag in so long, and I'm always open to tag partners. I've never been like in that kind of situation, but it's always something that I love because I love watching tag team wrestling myself.
Brilliant. Fierce females is something as well. It's a really good idea. Like, is that been a good place to work as well? Is there kind of much planned for going forward with that?
Yeah, Fierce Females has like been somewhere that's I've had like my favourite matches, and it's been such a good learning experience to work there multiple times. Obviously it's not been for a while, but there's definitely plans, hopefully when shows kick back to go back. It would be great. Because there's so much talent that they have at Fierce Females. It'd be so good to actually be able to wrestle them all.
Yeah, definitely. See, like obviously in Scotland, where there's a kind of loyal fan base. Like, have you kind of thought about like going forward how it's going to work, like with the social distancing and things like that? Is it going? Do you think it's going to feel the same?
It's been hard. Like, so we've been able to train again, but not entirely. It's because we're not allowed any contact whatsoever.
Yeah.
I've genuinely not wrestled someone in such a long time, and even though I've still been training every week, you're not allowed to do any contact, so it's so different. And I just dying for it to come back, but it's 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 very weird because I've not actually wrestled in so long, and then even at training I still can't technically do it, so it's been really difficult. I suppose it'll be a shock to everyone when it does come back that we can do that, but even when shows come back, there's still going to be some element of distancing and how many people you can have in venues, etc. So I think it'll be quite a long process to get used to it, to be honest.
Yeah. Where's some of your kind of favourite venues you've worked so far?
I love wrestling for Discovery in the Jam House, but they're no longer doing that venue anymore, which is quite sad. But that was like my favourite place to wrestle. I love wrestling in the Shed for Fierce Females just because it's like an over 18s crowd, and it's so much fun. So I think those are my two favourites that I've wrestled at so far.
Brilliant. See, when obviously you stopped wrestling in December, was it the plan to, like, if the COVID didn't set in, was it the plan to go back and do a lot more?
Yeah, it was. I think just at the time, at the end of 2019, I was looking for a new school and I just didn't feel comfortable going to wrestle as much as often. So it was just like, I'm going to sit back and see if I can find a school and train a lot more. I think just the end of 2019, there was so much I wanted to do, but I felt so lost because I didn't have a permanent training school and I didn't feel ready for all the things, but that was kind of the plan, just to find somewhere new and things like that, and stick to it. So hopefully when things come back, I'll be able to actually wrestle a lot more often.
Brilliant. See, since you started, do you think the business has changed in any way?
I mean, yeah, I'd say so for women's wrestling, especially. I think when I started, there wasn't as many girls, for example, in any training schools, but now it's such there's such a wide variety, especially of new like girls starting as well. So I think in that sense it has changed, and there's a lot more females getting used on shows now, especially because there is so many of them now. So I think that's what's changed since I remember starting, because I remember when I started there wasn't really many girls and there wasn't many shows like that either. So that's probably one of the main things that I can think of that stood out since I remember starting.
Yeah. Obviously, COVID started. How did you keep busy?
Well, I think at the beginning it was a lot easier because, when gyms and all that shut down, it was obviously really difficult, but it was easier because we were able to just work out at home. We did like seminars with different wrestlers online and things like that. So it was a lot easier in the beginning to keep busy and things like that. And then I started a YouTube channel as well. So that kind of kept me occupied for the first few months. And then I think as time dragged on, it became a lot more difficult to try and stay motivated, especially because then training was stopped. But now it's a lot easier because there's still training, there's still gyms, so it's kind of like up and down. But the beginning was a lot easier, I think, for everyone because there's so much to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned there about your seminars. Who were some of the good wrestlers you had a seminar with?
Yeah, so we had seminars with people like, so who did we have? So we had, obviously, I trained with Andy Wilde with his school for a wee while, online classes, etc. He had quite a few different guests on, like Chris Ridgway, things like that. It was fun to there was also like the NXT referees. He had like NXT UK stars like Danny Luna and things like that. So that was really, really interesting to learn from them as well.
That's brilliant. Yeah, Mickie James was the name you mentioned earlier. I know there's been a bit of a Twitter thing going on there. Just talk to us a bit about
that. So I've always, like I said, I've always been a fan of her, but I never I've always tweeted her loads of times, and one time she followed me back a few months ago when I tweeted something and I was like, oh, this is great. And I actually went out and DM'd her after she followed me, it was just like a little thank you, like so much, and whatever. She actually replied to me and I was like shocked. So she replied to me just saying that she'll be watching me and things like that. So ever since then we've kind of been close, kept in contact. And I tweet, like, she was obviously looking for an opponent for NWA, and I just put up a promo video not thinking much of it, and it got quite a lot of attraction, like people messaging me and even her retweeting the video and things like that. So nothing obviously confirmed, but it would be so good to actually, even the fact that she's just noticed me is good enough for me. But the fact that a lot of people are recognizing and seeing it online as well, it's such a good feeling.
Yeah, sounds brilliant. What are the kind of ultimate plans for your future? Like, where do you see yourself going?
I mean, obviously I'd love to do this full time in the next few years. Hopefully that does become a thing. There's not like one, I think everyone starts out as if WWE is the dream. Like, I think you would be lying if you said you didn't do that, and you wouldn't want to be a wrestler if you didn't say that. But it's like not the if I don't do that, that's it. Like, there's so many other companies now that are around, and I'd love to work anywhere. For example, Ring of Honor, somewhere that I've always looked to. because I love their style and their talent just now. So anywhere that I could do this full time would be like the end goal for me.
Brilliant. You all right closing with some quick fire questions?
Yep.
Brilliant. Apart from Mickie James, who would be your dream match?
I'll say Trish Stratus because everyone wants to wrestle Trish.
Good answer. Favourite match you've ever had so far?
One that sticks out to me was actually my debut for Discovery with Angel Hayes.
Brilliant. Favourite match you've ever seen?
Mickie James versus Trish Stratus at WrestleMania for the title.
Very good. Would you sign for WWE or AEW?
Anywhere that would take me, but obviously the dream has always been WWE, so yeah.
Brilliant. Favourite wrestler in the world right now?
Right now, I'm going to go for... This is difficult. Right now, top of my head, let's go for Liv Morgan, because right now she's one of my favourites.
Nice. 4 people you would start a faction with?
4 people I'd start a faction with: Martina, Lana Austin, Candy Lee, and Cassius.
Very good. Interesting fact about yourself?
Interesting fact, I don't think I'm that interesting. Interesting fact, God, that's a hard one to think of something interesting about myself.
It can be wrestling related if you want.
I have over 300 wrestling figures.
Nice. Nice. Final question, what has been the highlight of your career so far?
Highlight of my career, probably getting noticed by people like Mickie James and Trish Stratus commenting on things that I've posted as well. That's probably like the highlight.
Brilliant. Ashley, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it, and all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.